Ladies and gentlemen, one thing I can honestly say is I notice how odd the weather is in New Jersey. I noticed it from winter all the way up until now. The weather pattern is unlike anything I've ever seen since I've been in this state. I've seen wild weather before, but it just seems like all of the storms are just over the top. And we've had several tornadoes in the area this year. We have had the polar vortex, which took us below 0 degrees. We have had these outrageous storms. In fact, the power went out due to a storm about 2 days ago. We had another power outage, but this one didn't last quite as long as the one that landed me in a hotel. This one was shorter. And lo and behold, I came across this article today. So this came out August 23rd, 2019. Climate change. New Jersey is warming faster than most of the country. And you know what? It's true. It's really true. So this came out in app.com. From his office at Rutgers University, New Jersey, a climatologist, David Robinson, discusses climate change and the effects on New Jersey. New Jersey lobster boom has passed. Tom Fote, legislative chairman for the New Jersey Coast Anglers Association, recalls a time in the 1990s when warming waters off the New Jersey shore prompted the tasty crustaceans to produce more. They're not tasty to me. I don't eat nothing with a shell on it. Attracting more boats to fish for them. But then the water got too hot. The lobsters stopped reproducing as they had been. We were the canaries in the mine, Fote said, of anglers in New Jersey. New Jersey has emerged as a top state in the nation experiencing climate change, according to a new analysis of climate data by the Washington Post. New Jersey heated by nearly 2 degrees Celsius or 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit since about the turn of the last century, the Post found. That's double the average for the continental United States. Alaska, then Rhode Island, crossed the 2 degree mark, the Post reported. New Jersey is close. Some studies suggest the 2 degree mark is a point of no return for the planet. A juncture where policymakers will be unable to avoid the worst ill effects linked to climate change. You know what? I believe that. I believe that. And it is going to get worse. It doesn't help that you have a president that thinks climate change is a hoax. It's not real. So that means he's never going to do anything about it. David Robinson, the state climatologist, noted that warming has been much more severe in Arctic regions like Alaska. Yeah, like I said, 90 degrees in Alaska, that's unheard of. But it reached those record temperatures. In fact, it said it was a record-breaking month in Alaska in July. Never thought I would see that in Anchorage. Never. But he says the data spells trouble. Why New Jersey is one of the larger warmers in the lower 48 is hardly certain. He wrote in an email, however, I believe it may have something to do with its coastal location, and atmospheric interactions with the warm waters off our shores. And he could be right. New Jerseyans might have noticed the rising temperature even without the new post analysis, which looked at federal climate data going back more than 100 years. All 10 of New Jersey's warmest years have come after 1990, according to data compiled by Robinson. For instance, in 2012 was the hottest year in New Jersey's hottest year, has experienced records since started records started being kept in 1895. Yeah, I think what he's saying is true. I think it has a lot to do with us being a coastal state. I really do. I really believe that has plenty to do with it. What we're seeing lately is unprecedented in the magnitude of changes and the speed with which New Jersey has been breaking climate records, Robinson said. It's a global issue that has local ramifications, and in New Jersey, that's manifesting itself in rising temperatures and more abundant rainfall. Didn't I tell you the rain was freakish? We have these freakish rainstorms in New Jersey. It's almost like where I am, I'm telling you, it almost feels like every time we have a storm, it's like a mini version of a hurricane. We had a storm around the time when the power went out, when I told you it went out for several hours. The storm that came brought 70-mile-an-hour wind. And I think it dropped over 3 inches of rain, and there was a tornado. And I showed you some of that in the video about a month ago. That weather was freakish. And I remember when the tornado hit, my son was looking out the window and said, I can't see nothing. And I think at that moment, that's when the tornado hit the McDonald's, and it was a car wash in this big business industrial area right behind there. And they all lost power on that road. All right, so you can see this chart, and it's showing you from the 1900s all the way up to 2021. The projections, and it's going to get hotter and hotter and hotter. That's why I believe the heat waves are going to last longer. Right now, they're averaging about 4 days for us. Now, although this last one started Saturday and it didn't end until yesterday. But I will not be surprised that when we get to the point where the heat waves actually last an entire week, or even 2 weeks, or even 3 weeks. I really believe that's where we're headed. Temperature is not only impact for climate change. New Jersey was pummeled with more precipitation in 2018 than any other year since records were kept, even though there was no single rainstorm like Hurricane Irene in 2011, the year that previously held the record for precipitation. Hazardous impacts of climate change have already arrived in New Jersey. From the boom in stinging, clinging jellyfish in Barnegat Bay to the blooms of toxic algae in Manasquan Reservoir, the Garden State is grappling with the ill effects. And it could get worse. Climate change threatens Barnegat Bay's $4 billion tourism industry and could bring scorching summers to the shore. I believe that. We had a scorching summer this year, that's for sure. Point Pleasant Beach. Do you know, back in the 90s, my brother had this champagne color Monte Carlo, and he was in Point Pleasant, and he had his car stolen there. I will never forget that. His car was stolen. And they eventually found out who took the car. And my brother and a bunch of his friends went to the location to get the car, and they caught up to the guy that did it, and they jumped that guy and beat the hell out of him. And he got his car back. I will never forget that. So, Mayor Stephen Reed has noticed rougher weather, like the violent ban of thunderstorms in July that knocked down a tree limb in his home, smashing his RV. Reed estimated his town spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to dredge lake in the area to prevent roadway flooding during downpours. He noted the construction of dunes along the beach to protect against storms like Sandy. Reed was among a group of mayors who recently met with U.S. Rep. Andy Kim, a Democrat, to urge him to oppose legislation that would allow flood insurance rates to increase. All of these congressmen and senators down in D.C. need to really wake up and say, you know what? We need to invest in our structures, Reed said. New Jersey Congressman Frank Pallone, a Democrat, in June introduced legislation that would create a pool of federal money to reinforce shorelines with natural features like dunes, wetlands, and oyster reefs. Climate change is not some distant, abstract threat. It is here, happening now, and the latest data makes clear New Jerseyans are on the front line of this growing crisis, he said in a statement to USA Today Network. New Jersey. We see it in our warming winters, our disappearing shorelines, our increasingly severe storms, and even more frequent power outages. Yeah, he's right about that. Toms River. Mayor Thomas Kelleher, who has lived in the town since 1956, was also at the meeting with Rep. Kim. He said he noticed a rise in the water level of the bay. Yeah, the water levels have been rising all across the country. That meant increased roadway flooding. Yeah, tidal flooding is an increasing threat to the New Jersey shore, driving by rising sea levels, as detailed in an Asbury Park Press report in 2015. The flooding costs towns a lot of money. It sure does. So they are saying the flooding costs what they're talking about is raising the roadways, and that's going to cost $4.9 million if they have to do it, which is $1.1 million is coming from state grants. The government, though, will have to act quickly. Damage is already being done. Yeah, the flooding is outrageous. Look, they had to do rescues this year. It was so much rainfall in New Jersey. I was reading about rescues that they had to do across the state because the flooding got so bad in certain areas. Ocean temperatures along the East Coast rose 3.5 degrees in the last 30 years. And see, that explains a lot of the flesh eating diseases, that bacteria and everything people are getting from the water. That's why the ocean temperature is heating up. And you have a lot more toxic things going on in the ocean now. And it should not be surprised. They said a lot of these fish and wildlife, they're dying because, when the temperature gets hot in the water, you have less oxygen in the ocean too. And that's why you'll see so many beach whales and everything. And people are trying to push them things back in the water. Maybe you should just maybe you should just leave it alone, you know? All right. Okay, so the East Coast rose 3.5 degrees in the last 30 years, according to Malin Pinsky, a marine biologist and associate professor of ecology at Rutgers University. That has prompted fish and shellfish populations to move further north to cooler waters. For instance, American shad centered off Sandy Hook in 1991 have shifted up to Rockport, Massachusetts. American lobster centered off Long Branch in 1970 are now centered off Salem, Massachusetts. Yes, that's the same Salem where they did the witch burnings. That same Salem. More bugs. Yes. I had read back in the spring that we are going to get more bug infestations around the country as we start heating up. They said you can expect to see way more bigger bug populations and all kinds of infestations going on across the country, more than we ever seen before. So more bugs, warmer temperatures, and more rain lead to more mosquitoes and extend their activities earlier in spring and later in autumn. New Jersey saw a record number of West Nile cases in 2018, with 61 cases, including 3 deaths caused by the mosquito-borne illness. Yeah, we actually had one black man in my township, and he died. He died, and we were shocked because we didn't even know West Nile was in the township. We had no idea it was even there. So we did have a fatality from West Nile. So this year, New Jersey had the earliest reported West Nile case ever, when a Huntington County man was diagnosed on June 21st. Warmer winters allowed ticks to survive the season and the ability to transmit diseases in winter when they are usually dormant. A disease spreading tick is expanding its reach across New Jersey. That's very true, y'all. That's very true. Now, we had a couple of people get in water during a time when we had a toxic algae bloom, and those people ended up having all kinds of skin infection. There was one person that let their dog go swimming when the algae was in full bloom, and all 3 dogs died. All 3. So, we've seen some pretty freaky things happening. Harsher storms. Yeah, I'm a witness to that. New Jersey is more susceptible to extreme weather and flooding. The Raritan Basin has seen 5 of its 7 largest floods since 1999. While Superstorm Sandy wasn't propelled by climate change alone, the phenomena did play a role in its intensity. Yeah, Sandy did rise to sea level. Yeah, I remember that. So now they said it can get worse. New Jersey gets hotter. A major source of drinking water could be threatened. More than 1 million people in the southern part of the state get their water from an aquifer underneath the Pinelands, sandy area of pine forest, according to Joel Mott, principal public program specialist for the New Jersey Pinelands Commission. So, change in any direction would impact a lot of people. Rising sea levels mean undrinkable salt water could seep in. Drought would keep the aquifer, I think that's how it's pronounced, from recharging as quickly as needed. Alternatively, too much rain could saturate the aquifer and lead to flooding. Well, every damn thing seems to be leading to flooding in New Jersey. The shift norms is what catches our attention, Mott said. Well, this is not good news. I mean, I know the planet is heating up, but I had no idea New Jersey is like accelerated compared to the rest of the country. Well, I sure don't like hearing that at all. But what can you do? It's not going to change anything because I'm not comfortable with it. But I think this is a clear sign that we better start preparing ourselves for some very treacherous summers ahead. But please tell me what you think, ladies and gentlemen. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.